winter sort of starts trauma season for our koalas. Koalas are on the move. There's a lot of breeding that occurs between here and December, and that means there's a lot of koalas that are going through people's backyards, crossing roads, and coming into all sorts of trouble. So really I wanted to highlight the fact that at the moment, we're seeing about 40 koalas a month that are coming in because of trauma. That's going to at least double. We might be seeing close to 100 koalas in the next couple of months. If people live in an area where they know there's koalas in their area that come into their backyards, that go into their trees, and anyone in that area has dogs, the biggest thing people need to do is tie up their dogs at night. The other thing really is speed limits. So the chance of a koala dying on a road where a speed limit is over 60 kilometres per hour is huge. If they get hit by a 100 kilometre per hour car, there's a good chance they're going to die or sustain really severe injuries. Recently we had a very sad situation with a koala called Boots. Boots was brought in for a bladder infection, fairly routine treatment, but spent 6 or 7 months in here with thousands of dollars worth of care invested into him. 6 weeks after his release he was attacked by a domestic dog and presented dead on arrival. So very, very, very sad situation, and it makes it even worse to think that actually could have been prevented. So he was doing quite well in the habitat he was in, but because people had had dogs off leash or that dogs were running free at night and he was killed at night, he ended up dead, which is really, really sad and very disheartening for us, extremely disappointing, and we're all very heartbroken to hear about that. There's legislation in place which basically states koalas need to go back within a 5 kilometre range of where they were rescued from. In some situations that's perfectly suitable. Those koalas have quite good habitat. In other situations, those areas are very high risk. So there's a lot of traffic with major highways that are going right through their path, and there's a lot of dogs in that area. And there are hot spots that we've identified even looking at our statistics. I think there needs to be a lot more flexibility on what occurs in terms of putting a koala back into those areas. So we'd really like to work with local governments and the state government looking at how we can find some viable and practical options for koalas that are in high-risk areas. Unless we can start to get some action in terms of people taking ownership of their animals and not allowing them to free range at night, controlling that alone will drastically reduce the number of dog attack animals that we get admitted here, and we're not going to see all of those animals that get killed either. We see opportunistic rescues, I guess. There's a lot that are probably going to die out there that no one will ever pick up. Koalas can live quite happily in suburbia if they've got habitat trees in that area and if the risks on the ground are reduced. If we don't have dogs that are running free during the night, killing anything that moves, then the koalas have a much better chance of living there. And we have the opportunity to have koalas in our backyards. It just takes ownership of people on their pets to help control that and speed limits. I think the future for koalas in some areas of southeast Queensland is very grim. There's rapid decline of koalas. Everyone knows about the Koala Coast and down in Redlands. There's huge declines of koalas down there. And there's other populations, where it might appear that there's good habitat, but those animals are declining in number in there as well. And a lot of that is probably part of feral and wild dog populations as well as disease and potentially fragmentation of the habitat around them. They can't move between those habitats, and that is a natural thing that koalas will do. I think it would be really sad to think about no one ever seeing a koala in the wild again. And I don't necessarily think that will happen in the near future, but definitely in certain areas people are going to see koalas that have vanished from their suburbs and from their locations. I think there needs to be flexibility in the law. So the 5 kilometre range works in some situations, definitely, but I think in other situations, particularly in really high-risk areas, there might need to be more flexibility and the possibility of translocation in those situations.